There is a moment in your life that no one prepares you for. Not failure, not loss, isolation. The moment you realize the room is quiet and it's not going to change. No messages, no support, no one stepping in. And if you're honest, you didn't lose people by accident. They fell away when your direction stopped making sense to them. This video is not about motivation. It's about why that happened, why isolation finds certain people and avoids others, and why the ones who survive it never need permission again. If you're still watching, you're already past the first test. The moment of abandonment. There is a moment in every person's life, not a dramatic one, not a loud one, a quiet moment that arrives when the noise finally disappears. It usually happens when you stop moving, when the phone stays dark longer than usual, when the room feels bigger than it should, when you look around and realize no one is watching. You check your messages, nothing. You scroll, just in case, still nothing. And slowly an uncomfortable truth rises to the surface. No one is coming. No one is going to save you. No one is going to suddenly understand your vision. No one is going to invest in your potential just because you believe in it. And if you fail, you will fail alone. For most people, this realization is devastating. It feels like abandonment, like betrayal, like proof that something must be wrong with them. They ask the same questions every time. Why me? Why does no one support me? Why do I have to carry this alone? And for the majority, this moment becomes the beginning of the end. They retreat. They numb themselves. They search for comfort instead of clarity. They label themselves unlucky, misunderstood, cursed. And slowly, they lower their ambition until it fits the size of the room they're trapped in. But for a very small group of people, the ones history doesn't advertise, this moment does something else. For them, this is not a breakdown, it is a confrontation. Because when you truly accept that no one is coming, something inside you snaps into focus. The illusion dies. The illusion that support is guaranteed. The illusion that effort will always be noticed. The illusion that someone else will step in when things get hard. And in that brutal clarity, dependency collapses. You stop waiting. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop adjusting your ambition to make others comfortable. You realize something that most people never do. That silence around you is not an accident. It is exposure. You are seeing reality without cushioning, without emotional padding, without borrowed strength. Most people are never forced to face themselves this directly. They stay surrounded, but dependent. Encouraged, but fragile. Supported, but controlled. You didn't get that luxury. And that is why this moment feels so heavy. Because it leaves you with no excuses. No one to blame. No one to lean on. No one to hide behind. Only a choice. You can interpret this isolation as rejection, proof that you were never meant for more, or you can recognize it for what it actually is. A test. A test of whether you can stand without witnesses. A test of whether you can move without applause. A test of whether your ambition survives in silence. This is the moment where comfort exits the room, and if you don't flinch, if you don't run back to the noise, power begins to enter, quietly, coldly, without permission. This is the moment everything separates. Why isolation happens to you. Most people believe isolation is random. They think it happens because of bad luck, poor timing, or some invisible flaw in their personality. That belief is comforting, because if isolation is random, then it isn't personal. But the truth is colder. Isolation is not random, and it is definitely not fair. Isolation follows a pattern. It targets people who think differently, people who see further ahead than the room they're standing in, people whose ambitions don't match the emotional capacity of their environment. You weren't isolated because you were weak. You were isolated because you didn't fit. And human systems are designed to reject what they cannot easily categorize. Society rewards predictability. It protects sameness. It keeps people close who reflect each other's fears, limits, and routines. The moment you begin to deviate, the moment your goals grow faster than your surroundings, friction appears. People stop understanding you. Then they stop encouraging you. Then they quietly step back. Not because they hate you, but because your direction threatens their comfort. Your isolation didn't start when people left. It started when your internal trajectory changed. And here's the uncomfortable truth most people never accept. Ambition creates distance, not because ambition is wrong, but because most people are invested in stability, not growth. When you begin to think long-term, when you start questioning norms, when you stop needing constant reassurance, you naturally exit the herd. And the herd always punishes exits, sometimes softly, through neglect, sometimes indirectly, through silence, sometimes brutally, through abandonment. This is not cruelty, it's mechanics. Groups survive by maintaining equilibrium. Anyone who disrupts that balance is pushed outward. That's why the most ambitious individuals in history experienced long periods of isolation before influence. Isolation is not a curse, it's a filter. It separates those who require external reinforcement from those capable of internal direction. Most people confuse being surrounded with being supported, but support always comes with conditions: approval, alignment, compliance. When you stop conforming, the support disappears. And this is where most people misinterpret what's happening. They think, I must be doing something wrong. No, you are doing something incompatible. Incompatible with people who measure life in comfort cycles. Incompatible with environments that reward obedience over vision. Incompatible with minds that fear uncertainty more than mediocrity. Isolation is the cost of thinking independently, and that cost is not evenly distributed. People who follow paths already validated by society are rarely isolated. People who try to carve new paths always are. This is why isolation feels selective, because it is. It removes distraction. It removes emotional noise. It removes borrowed confidence. What's left is brutal but clean. You and your intent. You and your discipline. You and your tolerance for uncertainty. This is why isolation often arrives before capability fully forms. It forces adaptation. It strips away reliance on encouragement and replaces it with self-command. You weren't isolated because you failed to connect. You were isolated because your trajectory no longer required permission. And whether you rise from this point depends on whether you see isolation as rejection or as preparation, because nothing accidental sharpens this precisely. The lie of support. You were taught something very early in life, so early that you never questioned it. That success requires support. Teachers told you to work in groups. Society told you to build networks. Motivational voices told you to find mentors, partners, teams. The message was always the same. You can't do it alone, and at face value, it sounds reasonable, even compassionate. But this idea hides a dangerous lie. Because support is never free. Every form of support comes with a cost, and that cost is control. When someone helps you, you owe them. When someone believes in you, they expect influence. When someone supports you emotionally, they gain the power to withdraw it. Support creates dependency, and dependency always weakens leverage. This is the part most people refuse to see. They confuse being helped with being empowered, but those are opposites. The moment your progress relies on others, your direction is no longer fully yours. You begin to compromise without noticing. You soften your vision to keep approval. You delay decisions to avoid disapproval. Slowly, subtly, your ambition becomes negotiable. This is why supported people rarely build anything original. They build what can be agreed upon, what can be approved, what can be safely applauded. And safety is the enemy of power. A safety net does not just catch you when you fall. It also limits how far you're willing to jump. It feels like protection, but it functions like a cage. Niccolo Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He warned rulers against relying on auxiliary forces, armies borrowed from others. Because if they fail, you are defeated, and if they succeed, you become their prisoner. The principle hasn't changed. When your momentum depends on someone else's belief, you are not building power, you are renting it. And rented power can always be reclaimed. This is why people addicted to support panic when it disappears. They were never standing on their own legs to begin with. They weren't strong, they were balanced. And balance collapses the moment one variable moves. You don't feel weak because you lack support. You feel weak because you're still searching for it. Scanning for reassurance, waiting for validation, adjusting your pace to match others' comfort. That search drains energy. Energy that should be going into execution is wasted managing perception. Supported people are busy being liked. Unsupported people are busy becoming capable. This is the trade-off no one tells you about. Support feels good in the short term, but it delays the development of internal authority. Without support, there is no applause. Without applause, there is no performance. Without performance, only results matter. And results do not care about feelings. They respond only to discipline, consistency, and competence. When you remove support, you remove excuses. If you don't work, nothing moves. If you don't learn, nothing improves. If you don't adapt, nothing survives. The feedback loop becomes brutal, but clean. And in that brutality, something rare forms. Self-command. You stop asking who will help you. You start asking what must be done. And that shift, that single internal shift, is where real power begins. Support comforts, but isolation sharpens. If this is making you uncomfortable, if it feels like this video is describing your life, that's because you're not the audience. You're the subject. Subscribe to this channel, not for motivation, but because you're done needing reassurance. Like the video, if you value competence over validation, and in the comments, write one word only, alone, no explanations. Those who understand will understand. Now let's continue. Absolute isolation as power. There is a stage most people never reach, not because it's impossible, but because they turn back the moment it appears. This stage is what we'll call the 0 point. The 0 point is not metaphorical. It is real, and it is terrifying if you don't understand it. It is the moment when you take inventory of your life and realize there is nothing beneath you. No safety net, no financial cushion, no powerful contacts, no one emotionally invested enough to intervene if things collapse. Just you, your skills, your discipline, your tolerance for pressure. Most people encounter this moment briefly, then immediately escape it. They look for help. They lower their ambition. They retreat back into dependency. Because standing at 0 feels like death. But that's only because they misread what 0 actually is. 0 is not emptiness. 0 is freedom. At the 0 point, something profound changes in the power dynamic of your life. When you have nothing to fall back on, no one can threaten to take anything away. When no one helped you build, no one can claim ownership. When no one supported you emotionally, no one can withdraw support to control you. This is what absolute isolation gives you. 0 leverage over you. Most people are controlled not by force, but by what they're afraid of losing. Approval, belonging, security, access. At the 0 point, those chains are already gone. And that's why it feels so uncomfortable. You are no longer protected by illusion. You are exposed to consequence. Every decision matters. Every action compounds. Every mistake is felt immediately. There is no buffer, but there is also no interference. This is why the 0 point is where real power begins. You stop operating as a dependent unit and start operating as a sovereign one. Your time becomes sharp. Your attention becomes deliberate. Your standards rise because failure is no longer abstract. It costs immediately. Niccolo Machiavelli understood this principle clearly. He warned that a ruler who depends on external forces is never truly in control of his state, because power borrowed is power owed. At the 0 point, nothing is borrowed. Every outcome traces directly back to you. That responsibility scares most people, because responsibility without backup means there is no one to hide behind, no one to blame, no one to rescue you from poor discipline. But that is precisely why this stage forges strength so quickly. The 0 point removes delay. Delay between effort and result. Delay between mistake and consequence. Delay between weakness and exposure. And when feedback becomes immediate, adaptation accelerates. You learn faster. You decide cleaner. You cut distractions without guilt. Not because you're motivated, but because survival demands it. This is why people who pass through the 0 point often appear calm under pressure later in life. They've already stood on nothing and discovered it didn't kill them. It refined them. The 0 point is not meant to be comfortable. It is meant to be clarifying. And once you understand that, once you stop resisting it, Isolation stops feeling like abandonment and starts feeling like authority. From here on, everything you build is yours. The ghost phase. Once you reach the 0 point, there is only one way forward. You disappear. Not physically, but psychologically. This is what we call the ghost phase. The ghost phase begins the moment you accept a brutal truth. If you have no support, you also have no audience. And that is not a weakness. That is an advantage. Most people fail because they perform instead of build. They talk about what they're going to do. They announce plans. They post intentions. They leak energy through explanation. Every time they speak, they release pressure. They mistake attention for progress, dopamine for achievement. The ghost does none of this. The ghost does not explain. The ghost does not announce. The ghost does not seek reassurance. Because silence is not emptiness. Silence is compression. When you stop talking about your goals, all the energy that would have escaped through words has nowhere to go. So it turns inward. It becomes restlessness. It becomes tension. It becomes obsession. This is uncomfortable, and that's the point. The ghost phase is not meant to feel balanced or healthy. It is meant to be productive. When no one is watching, you stop performing morality. You stop maintaining a social mask. You stop managing perception. You work because the work needs to be done, not because anyone is clapping. This is where focus sharpens unnaturally. You are not distracted by opinions. Because no one knows what you're doing, you are not slowed by consensus. Because there is no one to consult. You move faster than supported people ever can. Large groups require agreement. You require only decision. This is why isolation creates asymmetry. A single person operating in silence can change direction in minutes. An organization needs meetings, while others are negotiating feelings. You are stacking output. The ghost phase also demands a vow of silence around ambition. You do not tell your family. You do not tell your friends. You do not hint online. Not because they would sabotage you intentionally, but because most people sabotage through doubt, not malice. A single raised eyebrow, a casual "are you sure?", a nervous laugh. That's enough to leak momentum. The ghost protects momentum by starving interference. This is where obsession becomes an asset. You let yourself think about the work constantly. You let it occupy your idle moments. You let it follow you into sleep. Society calls this unhealthy, but society also produces average results. The ghost understands that obsession, when directed, is not illness, it is leverage. You are alone, so you can immerse completely. No social obligations, no performative conversations, no energy tax, just repetition, iteration, refinement. This is where skill compounds quietly. And here's the paradox most people miss. The less visible you become, the more dangerous you are becoming underneath. Because when the ghost eventually reappears, it is never to explain, it is to demonstrate. Silence was not avoidance, it was preparation. Becoming the weapon. At some point, silence is no longer enough. Isolation strips you down. The ghost phase sharpens your focus. But what ultimately decides your fate is not how long you stayed quiet. It's what you built while no one was watching. This is where most people fail. They confuse suffering with progress. They think endurance alone makes them dangerous. It doesn't. Only competence does. Power does not come from being misunderstood. It comes from being undeniable. And this is where validation becomes your enemy. Validation feels good, but it weakens urgency. When you are praised too early, your nervous system relaxes, your edge dulls, your standards soften, you begin to perform instead of improve. That's why unsupported people have an advantage. Most don't recognize. No praise, no encouragement, no reassurance, which means no sedation. When no one is clapping, the only thing that keeps you moving is results. You are forced to ask harder questions. Is my skill actually sharp? Is my output actually valuable? Would this survive without explanation? Competence answers those questions without emotion. This is where you stop trying to be liked and start trying to be lethal, not violent, effective. You study deeper than others are willing to. You practice longer than others tolerate. You refine details most people ignore because they don't produce immediate approval. While others chase visibility, you chase precision. This is the shift from performer to weapon. A weapon does not need to announce itself. It does not need to be understood. It only needs to work. Niccolo Machiavelli made this distinction clear. He warned that rulers who sought love became dependent on opinion, but rulers who built capability commanded respect without asking. Respect follows competence naturally, because competence produces outcomes, and outcomes reorder hierarchies. This is why validation seeking collapses under pressure. Validation is external. It can be withdrawn. It fluctuates. Competence is internal. It compounds. It remains when everything else is stripped away. When you stop needing approval, you stop optimizing for comfort. You optimize for effectiveness. You choose harder paths because they build leverage. You accept boredom because repetition sharpens execution. You accept isolation because mastery requires solitude. This is not glamorous. There is no montage, no applause track, just long stretches of quiet improvement. And this is where most people quit, right before competence turns into authority, because competence is slow to reveal itself. But once it does, it is impossible to argue with. You don't need to explain your value. The environment adjusts automatically. Opportunities respond to capability, not intention. People who ignored you begin to notice, not because you demanded attention, but because your output forces recognition. At this stage, something irreversible happens. You stop measuring yourself through reaction. You stop tracking who supports you. You trust only one thing, what you can produce under pressure, and that trust is unshakable. Because validation can be faked, competence cannot. This is where you stop hoping for power and start embodying it. The test and the return. This is the part no one warns you about. Not the isolation, not the silence, not the struggle, but the return. Because if you pass every phase before this, the abandonment, the 0 point, the ghost phase, the competence, they come back quietly at first. A message that feels casual, a just checking in, a sudden interest in your life. People who were absent when you had nothing, develop curiosity when you have momentum. This is not coincidence. Human beings are drawn to gravity. They orbit strength. They avoid uncertainty. When you were building in silence, you were uncertain. Now you are solid, and solidity attracts attention. This is the final test, not of skill, but of discipline, because this is where most people undo themselves. They crave validation. They want recognition. They want to be seen now, so they let people back in too early. They reopen doors that were closed for a reason. They rewrite history to feel accepted. This is a mistake, because the return is not about loyalty. It is about positioning. People don't come back because they believe in you. They come back because your trajectory is no longer risky. When you were struggling, association with you had a cost. Now it has potential upside. This is human nature, not evil. But it must be understood. Niccolo Machiavelli was explicit about this. Men, he wrote, are loyal when it costs them nothing. When conditions change, loyalty changes with them. This is why the return must be handled carefully. You do not confront. You do not accuse. You do not explain where they were. You simply observe. Who respects your time now? Who tries to insert themselves into your narrative? Who speaks as if they were always there? These behaviors reveal intent more clearly than words ever could. The test is simple but brutal. Do you let them access the version of you they did not help build? If you do, you dilute your power, because access is leverage, and leverage given to the wrong people eventually becomes control. This is why the strongest response is calm distance, polite, neutral, unemotional. You don't reject them loudly. You don't embrace them eagerly. You treat them exactly how they treated you when the room was empty. Indifference, not revenge, not bitterness. Indifference signals completion. It tells the world you no longer need witnesses. You no longer require permission to exist at your level. And something interesting happens when you pass this test. The need to prove yourself disappears. You no longer care who believes your story, because you lived it. You no longer chase recognition, because competence already reordered the hierarchy. You are no longer reactive, because nothing is missing inside you. This is the return, not to people, but to yourself. The person who emerges here is not desperate, not loud, not hungry for validation. They are sovereign, and sovereignty is quiet. They came back, but you never went back. The final frame, if you're still here, then something inside you already understands. This path was never meant for everyone. Most people will hear these ideas and immediately look for exceptions. They will say, that's too extreme, that's unhealthy, that's not how the real world works. And then they will go back to waiting, to explaining themselves, to hoping someone notices their effort and rewards it. That was never your path. You didn't succeed because you were supported. You succeeded because you endured silence. Without becoming small, you learned to stand when there was no audience, to work when there was no applause, to sharpen yourself when there was no reassurance. That changes a person permanently. Once you've built something alone, you are never afraid of starting over again. Once you've carried your own weight, you stop begging for permission. Once you've survived isolation, you stop mistaking comfort for safety. This is what most people will never understand. Isolation wasn't an accident, it was selection. You were filtered, pressured, and stripped until only what mattered remained. And now, even if people surround you again, you are no longer dependent on them. That's sovereignty, quiet, unimpressed, unshakable. If this video articulated something you felt but never had language for, you already know why you're here. This channel is not for motivation. It's not for comfort. It's not for the crowd. It's for people who are done outsourcing their strength. If that's you, subscribe, not to support the channel, but to mark a decision. Like the video if you're willing to move without validation. And in the comments, write one word only: sovereign. No explanations, no speeches. Those who understand will understand. Isolation built you. Now protect what it created.